I don't get a lot of women in here with your background. This isn't easy work. There are many rewards, but there are just as many risks.
You think you know me?
Halloween! Could you text us next time?
What do you mean?
Before you show up unannounced.
I don't know.
What?
Aren't you afraid you'll be missing out? But you shouldn't listen to me. I'm under the influence.
Hi everyone, my name is Juliana Roth and I am a writer and the creator of the University web series, and I'm here with 3 other creators of web series, and we're going to be talking about inclusion and diversity and parity in media. And I'll just say a little bit before we get started about why we're doing this event. So I know at least when I was getting started, I had the question of how do you get things made? And I noticed all the people that we were just having this talk, asking for permission or asking to help, didn't look like me or didn't look like the characters that I was writing or wanting to tell the stories of. So I think that I got curious in why that was and learning that it was a shared experience. And I wanted to be able to talk to other women about, how they've dealt with that and how they've made changes on their own sets or the kinds of changes that they want to see. And so the web series I ended up making is called The University, and I actually made it several years ago when I was still an undergrad at the University of Michigan, and we used pretty much all student volunteers, including the actors, to get it made. And I can talk a little bit more about the experience later on too, but the series deals with sexual violence and the barriers to reporting sexual assault on college campuses. So I think also with media that is dealing with trauma or a very particular experience, having this conversation is really important because you want to make sure that those sets are safe and that everybody feels comfortable telling the story. So I'm gonna pass the mic over to She TV Media and get to know a little bit about you.
Hello, everyone. We are She TV Media. I'm Meredith.
And I'm Natalie.
And what we are so excited to be here. First off, thank you for having us. And the series we're going to be talking about is The Madams. Natalie, you want to tell them?
Sure. So about, oh my gosh, 2 years now? 2 years ago?
3? No, 2.
Who knows? I feel like 2020 was a time warp. So that year doesn't count. Just kidding. But yeah, about 2 or 3 years ago, we came on to this show called The Madams to produce it. So we were approached by the 3 writers, Casey, Dean, and Alana. Shout out to them. They're amazing. They're also fabulous actors. So they created the show, wrote it, produced it, and starred in it. And they approached us because they needed a producing team. And so we came on and we were just in love with this idea. It, at the bottom line, is kind of this risque, dark comedy about 2 sisters who started an underground escort business in Los Angeles. And while there are some fun and kind of crazy things that happen, at the end of the day, it's about these 2 sisters coming together and creating a life and a business for themselves that they ultimately want to live and thrive in. And so we were very excited to take this on and just kind of explore business in this kind of in a film. I mean, I think it was Meredith and I took a lot from it because we met in film school and knew nothing about business. And so when we created our business, we learned a lot. So it was kind of cool to kind of see that translated into film and just to be allowed to, kind of tell that story. So Meredith directed it, we both produced it, and then I DP'd it. And so, yeah, that's just a little bit about the Madams. Did I miss anything?
You covered. We'll definitely get into the nitty-gritty for everyone about the process and kind of the methodology and stuff behind creating it, which I think is really very telling for what this panel is about, like inclusion. And but for now, we'll pass it along. Deena, you're up.
Hi, my name is Deena, and I am the creator of a web series called Codependent. And so that came about probably like a year and a half ago. I was just, I come from a fiction writing background or a journalism background also. And I just have been interested in TV and script writing for a while. And so I basically just got together friends and friends of friends who had some experience in film, and we raised money through a Kickstarter. And I wrote the first season, and we did a couple like run-throughs of the script, and then filmed it last January and February, like right before the pandemic happened. I just, knew that a lot of TV shows that I really liked were started out as web series. So for instance, Broad City, Insecure, and it felt like a way for me to enter that world. I also just, wanted to write a show that was, loosely based on my own life and experiences. And my background is Egyptian, and I hadn't at the time seen shows with, starring Arab characters in any kind of way. So it was just something I wanted to be able to write and produce, and that's what we did. But yeah, I think that's it. We premiered it in October, so it hasn't been too long.
Yeah, it's really cool. And I thought it was awesome too that you also performed in it, right?
I did, yeah. So I don't have an acting background. It was just, it was me and my friends that I cast in it. So I was actually just talking about this the other day, that if I were to do a second season and somehow raise money for it, I might actually just recast everybody to actually have real actors. But I think it was good for a first season. Like, it was a good experience and learning about, TV and film and things like that.
I really love that too, that like you just jumped in, because I know like Natalie and Meredith, like sort of the ethic at She TV Media too is that you build in mentorship, right? And let people on set who maybe it would take years and years and years to get on set, right?
Yeah, that's definitely one of the pillars that we wanted to incorporate into our video production company as a whole, and also on our sets, just because we know how exclusive the entertainment industry, right? Like, we're all aware of, the gatekeepers and how things work, if you will, or have worked up until now. Obviously it's changing, but to just kind of gain access and firsthand experience is like the best way I learn, and a lot of people are very hands-on. So any opportunity that we have to either mentor or bring people onto our sets, but then also in turn for us to also learn from other people. So any chance that we get, we always have a bunch of mentors and people in various, industries, but also in the entertainment industry that we can be like, hey, what's your insight on this? How did you do this? Because knowledge is power, and any way that we can kind of pass that on and pay it forward, that's the way that we're going to start seeing better and more fresh perspectives in our content.
Because so I know, like, for me at least, like, I in undergrad was not a film student. Like, I dropped out of the only production class I ever took because I got really intimidated by like the focal length ratios, and I was like, I don't know what math is, I need to not do this. And that was like, I always was like, oh, I'm gonna write and not deal with the technical parts of it. And I think part of it too, when I look back, is like, oh, who was in the classroom, and like, not to like say anything about, the classic like film bro, because they also are very talented, and I work with men like that all the time too and respect it. But I think there's a certain like cliche of who gets to operate the camera and who can hold the boom and things that I get really excited when I hear like of your hiring practices, because I'm like, oh yeah, that would really send an important message.
Totally. I think a good example of just exactly what you're saying is that when we were on the Madams, we actually had a first time experience, which was filming someone who was 8 months pregnant. And she ended up being our lead actor, one of our lead actors. And so it was extra funny because she wasn't supposed to be pregnant. Her character was not supposed to be pregnant. So actually in like the first 2 episodes while she was pregnant, we like just covered her belly in all of the shots. Like she is still a very petite woman. And so like if as long as we weren't looking at her side, as long as she was straight on or we were just seeing like the straight, behind her, then we could hide it pretty well. But something like that was really interesting because Meredith and I were like hyper aware of like just covering the pregnancy angles or doing like hiding it in very unique and interesting ways so that it didn't look like we were trying to hide something. So yeah, that was just like kind of a fun, interesting experience we had. And I think it helped that the crew was mostly women, and so we all kind of understood. We also gave her extra breaks and like we were like, whatever you need, like you're the queen, we will work for you. And it was also magical that she had her baby on like our last day of filming.
Oh my gosh, we were so close. We
we were like, hold it in.
Yeah. Shout out to Casey. I don't know what you did, but you made it through filming, and it was like because we also front loaded like our scheduling and everything. We made sure that we got her done in and out as quickly as possible, with our shoot schedule and everything. We're like, front load Casey because she's literally got a ticking baby inside of her. So that was another thing too, just to take into consideration. But yeah, she finished, we wrapped, and then I think it was like a day or 2 later that she went right into labor.
Yeah. Crazy.
Wow.
I also just have to tack on too, I'm sure Deena, you have maybe a similar experience, and also Juliana, but I think in how we approached our sets was very like, it was kind of obvious. It was like this weird ecosystem when you have a primarily like female-led crew. Like the experience too was very different, right? Like, so we were incorporating, obviously we had Casey who was pregnant and all these other elements that you might not necessarily have. But I think our approach to just mentally, we were all like, okay, we have to incorporate breaks for her, right? We have to like use this as a whole person approach to the filmmaking. Like, we're not robots, we have emotions, we have things that we need to take into account. And I think making sure that in conjunction with like morale and how people are feeling on set, I think that was something we talked about, we were very like open about, and I think that benefited us in terms of like having to film and crank out, we had a very short production schedule. We did 2-episode series in like 5 days. And yeah, so I could tell, you could tell on set that it was different. And I don't know if you have similar things, Juliana and Deena, but we could definitely tell.
Oh, yeah. So we had we didn't have anyone pregnant on set, but we did have a similarly like short shooting schedule where we filmed it over 2 weekends. So it was 4 days of filming 3 episodes. And I actually had not been on a film set before, other than like I helped someone film like a short sketch one time. And so I was like very aware of like morale and things like that. And we did like 12-hour days or longer. And so I was exhausted and everyone was exhausted, but it was a big thing where I would just have to keep being like, okay, should we take a break? What do we have to eat? When do you guys want to eat? Like, what do you want to do? So it was definitely an interesting experience in that regard. I don't know if you had something similar, Juliana.
Well, I mean, it's interesting because most of the producers on my project were men, and like I think for the most part, they were like very like hyper conscious of like this is a difficult subject, and like a lot of our camera operator was a woman and our boom operator was a woman. But again, we made this like 2014, like so it's also like pre-Me Too and all of that. So I think in general there is just like a lot of like, are we doing this right kind of running around, which I think sometimes maybe made it like a little bit tense. But at the same time, we were also working with students and a lot of them knew each other from classes. So I think I also took for granted, like, oh, there's a certain level of comfort built in between the actors and the crew, because like they're not just here working together, they also like go to the cafeteria together in the library together. So there's like I think I definitely leaned on that of like let's incorporate how our lead and the woman who plays her roommate, they were actually roommates in real life. So I was like this adds something special here that I don't think I've never experienced on like a set outside of like a university setting, because just by the nature of what the story was.
Yeah, we also had, so my set was like we were all friends, so it was very comfortable and it was easy. Like we had men and women in the crew, but it was easy to be aware of where everyone was mentally and like when we needed a break, and everyone felt comfortable enough to say like when they needed a break.
I could really sense that there was like an actual like kindness or fondness between like you three, like the three leads. I don't know. It was like this seems like
Yeah.
I don't know. I liked being in their world because of that.
Yeah, I think for sure it helps. I mean, Sarah is my cousin, so I've known her my whole life, and then our other friend Persia, like we're all actually very close friends. So it worked out. Which
That's
I know
so
like
cool.
some people can't work with friends, or it's not a good idea. And maybe if we were to do it many, many days, it would end up becoming bad. But for the 4 days of filming, it was good.
That's awesome. Yeah, I could tell you guys were very comfortable together. Like the chemistry was there, which I think is so cool. I mean, like I said, Meredith and I didn't, like for our project, The Madams, we didn't write it, so we weren't in control of creating the characters, but it really was cool because the creators of the show did have ideas of like, they kind of wrote the characters based off of some of their friends. And for us kind of coming into that was really cool because we were like, oh, like you fit this character perfectly. Or for some of the roles that they didn't have cast, like that's where we could kind of come in and be like, hey, I know this person that might be perfect for it, like let's get them in here. But yeah, it's definitely a game changer, Deena, like you said, when you're working with people that you can like get along with on like a friend level too. I think that that's something that's really important that Meredith and I try to bring into all our sets, is just like kind of getting to know everyone on a deeper level, like not just hiring crew for the day to come in and do a job. It's like, no, we want to establish a relationship with you. We want to have fun while we do it. We want to be laughing and joking around if it's appropriate, if you're filming a serious scene, then
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
and I think, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, that was it. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, so with some of my crew, I actually wasn't friends with them beforehand. They were like friends of friends, and so I met them through all of this. But I think I definitely did try to make an effort, like to get to know them. Like I had them over to like do a table read, and then we had like a wrap party at the end, and we filmed part of it in Philadelphia. So like I drove everyone to Philly, and like we hung out and then filmed the next day. So it was sort of nice getting to know everyone. I think it helps us work well together.
That's so cool.
That's kind of the beauty too of like the indie film or project, because it's like, it's all hands on deck. Everyone has the common goal in mind, right? Like some are friends, some are family, like it's who you roped in. But I do think like in certain like in our experience, most of the time, it actually like really benefits for like on-screen chemistry, and like with you, Deena, you just had this comfortability that like really shows through and that the camera can capture. And I think that's really the authenticity most people like are looking for, like, right? They want to be like, oh, I could totally hang out with them. Oh, I see like my friend group's just like that. Or, you know, I talk to my sister that way. So I think it works out. And I think that's kind of like the magic of indie film sets too, is like you can really see these people probably know each other or have relationships or, you know, have that history.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that also speaks to like part of what we were discussing before this started too, of like how important it is to have it not just be the actor who's you know, like in your case it representing an Egyptian story, but like also the writer would like bring that in. And like it's not, I feel like when we like thinking about longevity, like why it's important to have it be both. I don't know if you'd have any thoughts on that.
Sorry, can you repeat the last part again?
Yeah, sorry. My headphone is slipping. So like, why is it important to have it not just be like, for instance with Codependent, to just have like hired Egyptian actors? Why is it important to also have like the actual writers and like people involved in producing it also understand that world?
Oh yeah. So I mean, I wrote it, so it's, I think if you're going to write a story about, you know, whatever cultural group, I don't think you necessarily have to be a part of that group, but I think you should have some level of understanding. And one thing I wanted to do with Codependent is, I think a lot of stories about people of color end up focusing on, you know, trauma, or, you know, the story is about being a person of color and like whatever traumatic experience you go through. And I think I wanted to not do that and just have, you know, women of color who are living their everyday lives, not plagued by racial trauma all the time. And I think that can be a fine line, because you don't want to ignore race entirely, but you also don't want it to just, you know, be heavy and depressing, especially if I'm, you know, writing a short comedy series. And so it definitely is important to have some sort of understanding of like nuances. And my first episode has us at a party pre-COVID, when we could still go to parties, and people just, you know, making like small comments and like microaggressions. And I think understanding that world is definitely important, both in the writing and in the acting. But yeah, I don't know if in the Madams series or the university, that's something that comes up, or.
Yeah, I'd be curious to hear about the Madams, because I know that you mentioned that the writer came to you with their story. So what was it like as the producer, as a production company, like when you first saw the script, and what were like the questions that you had right away?
Yeah, I mean, I had a lot of questions when I first read it, but I think they brought it to us, and one, we were just honored because it is such an exciting project, but also to work with a writer creator team is like amazing. And they were also going to be acting in it. And I think understanding the world that they had created, one, helped in acting, and also in terms of communicating to us what their vision was, because we really wanted to make sure, like, you're the creators, we want to bring visually to life your script, but like keep talking to us about what you picture this world, and how would she say this, or what would she be thinking here, or like what would she wear, and, you know, like giving a lot of the backstory and making sure that we were communicating that to them, because we didn't want to take their baby. We wanted to just, you know, help their baby walk. So I think that was something that we were constantly just checking in to be sure, like, how's this fit? Do you align with it? We didn't want to take over. We approached things very collaboratively, and I think that's a great way to approach filmmaking, and it worked out for us.
Yeah, and the writer team too. I mean, Casey D and a lot. It's two girls and a guy, so I think that was kind of unique too, in that they kind of had lots of brainstorming sessions between the three of them, like way before we even got involved, for probably like 2 years, I think. And so they had been working on this project for a very long time. The three of them had become very close, and the three of them were like the top leads of the show. And so that I definitely think was really good in both getting like different perspectives on a character and different input. And then of course, by the time they brought it to us, they were open to hearing our input as well. And like Meredith said, it was really cool because they knew everything about their characters. So really it was like they were an open book for us to just ask away when we were like, wait, why would they say it this way? Or what's the motivation of this person doing this specific action or something? So that was, yeah, it was really fun to kind of explore that world with them, and excited to create more soon.
Just to add on what Natalie was saying, I think also because of the topic, like I don't know if we've even told, have we said exactly what the escort business, right? So we had like this topic that, was relatively new to us, and that we wanted to, like, obviously we were aware, but we'd never created, a web series that focuses around that. And I think we had a lot of conversations, about sex positivity and like different themes that were kind of like underlying in the script and in the world that they wanted to communicate through. And so that was an awesome experience for us, because we have that kind of filter in the back of our mind too, like how we want to portray it, how these characters react in their world to what they do. And so that was kind of another thing we wanted to be cautious about how we approached that topic as well.
Definitely, which I think can relate to all of our projects, this idea of inclusion and doing our research right about something before we put it on film. And I know in our case, Alana, like her character, like our mainline character, she works at a brothel, and she at the beginning leaves, and that's kind of when she starts her journey in this idea of like maybe starting something on her own. But the real life person who played that character, Alana, did a lot of research on actual running brothels in the like Las Vegas, Nevada area. And I think she even went and like interviewed somebody, which is like, talk about like doing your research. And like we had so many conversations of like trying to be inclusive and and making sure we're not pointing anyone in like a bad light or whatever, that we're always trying to empower, all of these characters and all of these like storylines that we're developing. So that was definitely unique for us and really fun to play around with.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So with Codependent, we didn't really have anything. There wasn't really any one topic that we needed to do extensive research on or anything, because it was mostly just about like, oh, a comedy about everyday life of these three women. I will say though that like even though I wrote the script and had in my head a certain way that I wanted roles to be played, I think having other people there definitely helped make it better. So for instance, my director, Jenny, she has experience with film directing and would often have us say the lines in all different ways. And when we went back to edit, I would find that like a lot of the ways that I had initially envisioned maybe were not the best, even though I wrote it. And this other way that Jenny had me read a line came out better or sounded better. So it was definitely a collaborative process in all sense.
really love that, and like bringing up that idea, because that is what's so cool about filmmaking. Like similar to Deena, I also write fiction, and I know that, like, I don't want to speak for your experience, but it's like when you're writing fiction, you do have your readers and your workshop members, but it's like just way more insular and difficult to have that same collaborative experience in some way. And I like that about it in certain scenarios, but it was really special, like the way that what happens when you just have a room full of people.
Yeah. Yeah, that was, oh, sorry, I was gonna say that was,
Oh, no, go ahead.
that was my first time actually like working on a big collaborative project like that. So it was definitely a learning experience and a different way to work that I really enjoyed.
And I'm curious, like when we're talking about collaboration too, again, since we have like a production company here, like what have you found with like hiring practices or other types of just like adjustments to make on set that can actually make it, because I feel like a lot of times people will say, oh, we want to promote diversity and inclusion, but then whatever changes they make can't be sustained because it's like the environment itself is not welcoming. So like, what do you do? I know you've spoken to some of it, but like, what do you do to make sure that like you are actually supporting people of different backgrounds or women or other folks?
I would say, Natalie, chime in whenever. I would say that we really try, like the Madams was an instance where obviously like it was already created. So like the writers, creators already existed and they were in and of themselves, Natalie said, 2 women of color and a man of color. So like we already came into like their experience. And so in like addition to that, when we were approaching like producing and like crew and all of that, we really wanted to make sure that we had a full spectrum of voices and people on set. So like even in our ways to find sound people, you know, we really wanted to make it as diverse as possible. And like it is hard to, or it was hard to find, you know, our sound lady was amazing and
she's the best.
She's so great. But we really just tried to create an environment that was on as many levels of crew as possible, diverse and different, because we felt that that would serve the project the best and also just be a good ecosystem and an environment on set to create for everyone. We wanted obviously to establish a level of comfortability and like trust. Like you are, you know, these people are putting, you know, their lives and souls out there, and we really like to create a safe space, as we say, for people to be able to fully express themselves, and want to make sure that everyone understands that there's a level of respect that we expect from everyone that comes on set, and that nothing outside of that will be tolerated. Because I think as if you set that from the get-go, you know, it will only help you down the road when anything comes up or someone brings something to their attention, or like this made me uncomfortable, you know, like we have to address those things. And that's something we take very seriously because we've both had experiences on sets where that wasn't the case. And we wanted to be sure that we did everything in our power to make sure that we create that environment.
Agreed.
I like the applause.
I'm a fan of Zoom reactions.
Yeah, because I think what you're speaking to, like I've also had, even on this project, I had experiences, unfortunately, with like people crossing boundaries and lines. And like when I look back, I'm like, yeah, it's so important to like you're saying, setting the stage for like what's respect and what, and especially when you get a collaboration, like what each role is and what that means. And so I think I find what you say like really useful, like thinking about like future projects or best practices, and yeah, not making it just like a symbolic thing, because I know a lot of the times that happens. Or like I know you know, like the Oscars makes these commitments that we're gonna include more women and people of color in the nominations and stuff, and still like nothing really changes that much. And it starts at the, like you're saying, at the grassroots level of like who is even getting their foot in the door on even like small productions.
I think, yeah, definitely small productions, indie productions, that's where the opportunity is at, right? And I'm sure we can all relate to this too, where like sometimes, especially when it comes to locations, I don't know, I feel like that's when we usually like get lots of favors, and friends of friends know so and so who said we could film in his whatever, you know, like it's, you kind of find people who are passionate about the project and are willing to, you know, offer something to you, you know, whether it's crowdfunding and they give you 5, 10, $2,000 or whatever it is, you know, or they're like, hey, I have a shop you can come and film in, or an apartment you can come and film in, or whatever. So I think that's really cool too, is that not only are we getting sometimes even outside of film people, but also we're like, oh my gosh, we need a last minute this person, you know, sound person, whatever. We can teach them on set, you know, bring them, we'll teach them, and then they'll be a part of the set or whatever. So it's kind of fun being in that. It's, you get really creative, right? You kind of just have to like figure out a way to make it all happen. So yeah, that's kind of random.
Yeah, I definitely had that experience. It was just like just asking a bunch of people for favors all the time, like from the very beginning of like donating money. And then like we filmed one scene in a doggy daycare, and it was meant to be like an animal rescue place. And it was just because my dad's cousin owned the place, and he was actually like, the store was like permanently closing like 2 days later, and he was like, yeah, just come in, film, and that's it, this is the last thing we're going to do here. And just at one point, Persia, one of the actors, her little brother was our production assistant one day, and it's just like, who is here at this time and can help me. So yeah, that was a learning experience, and I'm sure something that happens with like independent film all the time.
Yeah, I think all of those like resources that are not like straight up dollars, right? Like I feel like that's so much a part of it. Especially, you know, I think we've all done like had crowdfunding experiences, and I feel like that can feel like the only way to like make something possible. And obviously it's important, like you want the budget and you want to pay crew and all that stuff. But I love hearing about that, like how you just kind of made a collage of like what was in your life.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know for the university, like we obviously I had the luck of it being set on a campus, so I could just use the campus, and like people were used to students filming all the time, so it was like not a big deal. Like certain locations we had to secure, and we had to like get the we were filming in the summer, so we could get one of the dorms to donate an unused bed, so we like, that was our one set, was the dorm. And so it was like a timing thing that we were lucky that they could like give us furniture that no one was using. So I think that's a good tip too for students, or like anybody who has an affiliation with a university, or like can get free equipment somehow. Just like start at like the level of like what you're saying. Does your uncle have a pet shop that's closing, or like what can you write to set in this like interesting location that you already have?
Yeah, and we filmed most of it actually in my living room, but we also had like a scene in a bowling alley, and I called just a bunch of bowling alleys in New York and like some of them had a really high rates. They were like, oh, it's $1,000 per for 2 hours or something. And I was like, no, we don't have the budget for that. And then finally, one bowling alley I called was like, oh yeah, we can give you a room and it's like not that expensive for an hour. And so it was just a matter of like calling as many people as you can, getting over my phone anxiety until I like found the right place.
As producers, like what do you look for? Because I know right now you're like focused a lot in like indie content. And like what do you look for when someone like Deena or I come to you and like this is our project, like what are you thinking of as like what you can invest, or like what shows you that an indie project has legs for your company?
Meredith, would you like to go?
Sure. I was watching to see who unmuted.
I know. That's usually like our little signal to each other.
It's like
whoever
cute,
unmutes
you know? A little nod. Yeah, that's a great question. I think obviously now with COVID and everything, we are in a very unique situation. So I think, like you're saying, writing and creating content that you have access to is obviously a huge plus. So like say you're a gym manager and you wrote something, you know, that takes place in a gym. Obviously like finding different ways to incorporate and like you're saying, use what you've got, right? So like you've got a living room, cool. Lots of things can take place in a living room. You know, like lots of any genre can take place in a, you know, so you can kind of get creative. And I think people are, especially because of being stuck at home, getting creative with what you have around you, or like your house, or who you know has a different house or an outdoor location maybe that's like safer. If you're gonna have to do some kind of like closed set, I think taking those things into consideration is very helpful, because if you can take care of locations and you can take care of maybe even like actors or people that you know that we can pull into the project, that's like a huge weight off trying to figure out, and obviously saves you a lot of money too.
Yeah. And then I think at the end of the day too, it really just like we're inspired by other creatives and other people who are passionate about storytelling. And so obviously, I mean, we are TV media, so we like to create empowering content with, by, and for women, but we are not exclusive. We still tell stories where the lead character is a man and where it's written by men or whatever. We're very inclusive in that sense, but really it's about like telling authentic stories that haven't been told before. You know, we want to, Meredith came up with the slogan when we started TV Media that in order to change the media, we need to become the media. So with every project that we sign on to, it's like, how are we making a positive impact on the world with this project? And what message are we putting out there? We're not interested in projects that are just like visually beautiful or like just for our reel, if that makes sense. It's like, no, we want to be invested. Like if we're gonna come onto a project, we're gonna like go to bat for that project. Like we're gonna believe in it 100%. So that's kind of what we look for. And obviously a lot of that is like, you know, who are we collaborating with? You know, are these people trustworthy? People who get our, you know, who like just can work at the same level of professionalism that we do, but still be silly at like the same way we are, you know? So yeah.
I think too, just to tack on to that, I think it, like Natalie's saying, if you have such a compelling story, it doesn't matter where it takes place, right? Like it could be in your living room, the whole thing, you know, if you have that kind of like draw and really just the meat of the story, you know, maybe it's a one person show, you know, it kind of doesn't matter if the messaging and like the story is there, like we'll figure out a way to make it on camera, you know.
I liked, so one thing Natalie said that I liked was you were talking about how like why you would work with a certain show, or like what is compelling about it, or why you would be telling that story. And I think in writing, that's something I think about a lot too. So like with Codependent, I was like, what am I bringing to, TV? Not that I'm on, like, it's a web series, but still, like, what am I adding, and why am I writing this? And I think that's something that's important to think about. So like for me, it was, well, I don't see characters on TV that look like me. Like I don't see Arab characters unless they're like in some offensive stereotypical role. And I wanted to just write a show with Arab characters that are just, living normal lives. And I don't think I had seen that really until the TV show Rami came out, which was really great. But I would hope to just sort of continue that. And that's just the idea of like, what am I contributing to the genre, or like, what am I adding to by writing this, is important to think about.
Yeah, I love that. And I really appreciated like what you're saying about even like going beyond just like having a normal life, but like what, like telling stories that I don't know, yeah, put characters that we see in different situations. So I'm even thinking like, I know I had some insecurity with the university about, oh, it's like, why is this just another trauma narrative? Like, do we need like another reason for women to feel afraid? And I think one of the things I landed on was like, we're not going to show the assault on screen. And like, it was really important to focus on like the reactions of everybody to that story rather than like proving whether or not it happened, or like letting it become like trauma porn or something like that. Because I think I really love what everyone's been saying about that, about like what are the expectations for this genre or these types of characters, and like how especially because in indie media making, you can like do what you want. Like you don't have like $1 million budget and like producers who are yelling at you or whatever, you have some freedom to do that.
And I love that because it starts a conversation about the topic. You're not just showing this like Hollywood film of drama and this and that. It's like, no, your project is designed to get people who have just seen it to join in conversation about it. And that's ultimately how things are going to change. It's like destigmatizes the conversation, so it's really cool. I'm interested to hear about everybody's like next steps. Like where's the project? Where can people watch it? Are you going to make more? All that.
Yeah, well, Codependent is all on YouTube. I think if you just type in Codependent web series, it should come up. We have 3 episodes. I would like to make a second season if I can figure out how to get funding for it. Because I don't know, I feel like you can only beg your friends and family for money one time. And so now I'm like, all right, well, I don't want to do another Kickstarter. Let's see, are there other ways? So I'm trying to look into like grants and things like that. And if we can get funding, then yeah, I'll do a second season.
That's awesome. I hope that you do. Yeah, similarly to Deena, I feel like I'm at that point where it's like, okay, I did the one like scrappy, I have no money. We did it on like very, very little. And like originally we were crowdfunding, and like, which is how I met Natalie and Meredith. We were crowdfunding for turning the web series into a feature film, and we weren't successful, but we did take what we had and like turn that into a pilot. So I've been like, you can watch the pilot right now. I have a link in our most recent post. It's up on the Arts Council of Rockland website, and I've just been giving access to different nonprofits to screen it with their audiences. And then but the first 5 parts of it are on YouTube. And like we were just talking about, like I think one of my personal goals is to not just get like boxed in by like, oh, the trauma narrative. Like I don't like the other things that I'm writing are very different than this. Like, and I want to write in different genres. So I have just been writing new things, and I'm like, maybe one day the feature will happen. But right now, the idea of like a big cast with multiple locations, I'm like, I can't figure that out. I don't know when we can be safely in a college campus room and things like that. So yeah, hopefully we'll get to make some new things once the world opens back up. But the same thing, how do you get the money is always the question.
Yeah, we've been like nonstop grant writing for a few different projects that we have going on, but it's like one of those things where you do like 50 of them and then you get one, and then it makes it all worth it. You're like, gosh, why do I do this? And then you get one grant and then you're like, okay, we're good. But yeah, for us, for the Madams, we have the Madams is currently on a distribution platform called Sideshow TV, and you can go watch it for free. They actually made the Madams watchable for free right now. So you just create an account on the platform and then bypass the payment page, and then you can go watch it for free, and let us know what you think. We also have the website, themadamseries.com. And so that will go straight to both the website. It also has a trailer and just a little bit more information about the characters and the show. And yeah, you can find us on Instagram at the Madam Series, and our production company at She TV Media.
We've got all the links on there. We'll be scrolling for days.
So many links. Awesome. Yeah, I feel like, did anybody have any other like questions or thoughts before we wrap up? I feel like we're coming up on time, so I'll be the little like countdown clock over here.
No, I'm excited to see what you both create next, So I think it's a great starting point, and I'm excited.
Yeah, thank you.
Keep
and
it
I'm
up.
excited to see I'm excited to see what else She TV produces.
Thanks.
We'll be sure to update you.
Yeah.
Yes. Awesome. Well, goodbye, everyone. This has been another episode.
Yeah,
But yeah, thank you all for doing this. And I feel like, yeah, just joining together and having the conversation makes such a big difference. And I feel like, especially like speaking for myself, like when you're working independently, it's hard to like remember sometimes that there's like a whole community of people out there, and like people who are going through the same struggles or having the same goals. So this was really awesome.
Totally.
The more of us, the better, right? So it's like there's strength in numbers. So like keep doing what you're doing, and then we'll multiply.
Yeah.
Yes. All
right. Well, thank you so much for having us. This was fun.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for being here. Bye, everyone.
Bye.